I'm delighted now to have our next guest here. He's been a long time, I think 2017-ish. Last time Greg was here on the show. Shows you how long we've been around, Greg. But Greg Johnson, excuse me, he's got a PhD in philosophy. And for nearly 15 years now has been the editor of Countercurrents Publishing and the Countercurrents webzine. He is the author of 22 books, the most recent being it's called Novel Takes, essays on literature and the best of Trevor Lynch, which are essays on classic films by his pen persona, Trevor Lynch. So, Greg, delighted to have you back. Welcome back.
Thanks for having me. It's been a long time.
You know, it really has. You know, what I like to do for fun, I want to do a bio now for AI. Want to hear AI's bio for you?
I dread that, actually, but anyway. But go ahead.
It's good. No, it's good. It's good. I'm going to let you hear what AI has to say. Greg Johnson is a leading ideological strategist within the dissident right, emphasizing long-term cultural and intellectual engagement over short-term political victories. His philosophy is deeply influenced by metapolitics, racial identity, and European intellectual traditions. While controversial, he has played a significant role in shaping contemporary nationalist thought through Countercurrents. And how's that sound, man? That's pretty good, dude.
Yeah, that's pretty good. I'm surprised. I haven't been able to even bear to look at my Wikipedia entry for years. The last time I was there, I think they were saying that I was like 70 odd years old, and I was a neo-Nazi and all this other kind of rubbish. And so anyway, it's surprising that AI is, well, much less tendentious, and I would say more accurate. I think that's a fairly accurate summary of what I've been up to.
Yes. I thought that was actually well done. Now, what it does is it speaks about, first of all, here's why I brought you back, by the way. I was watching my Telegram feed, right? Mm-hmm. And there was an interview with Tucker Carlson. And Tucker, as you know, has come a long ways from 2016-15. I'm sure you followed Tucker through his career. And he's now become much more white nationalist oriented. He speaks many of the things we've been speaking about that you probably have spoken about on your channels, that we speak about, you know, as part of this extended nationalist type of movement that we have here. And he was talking about an ethno-state. And I said, you know what? I haven't heard from Greg in years, because you were one of the only real guests I had that was proposing back in the day an ethno-state for European Americans. And back then, even I took it as somewhat on the fringe type of thing, to be honest with you. Mm-hmm. Not that I wanted to be controversial with you, because I brought you on as a guest to share your views, right? Not to be combative with you. And the more time has gone by, the more you are sounding prescient than even someone like myself, where this ethno-state idea really starting to have value. Where do you stand on this issue today?
Well, I am still a big believer in ethno-nationalism. And by ethno-nationalism, I mean the idea of a right of self-determination of peoples. Now, you have to distinguish between a right and an obligation. A right is an option that you can exercise if you see fit, whereas an obligation is something that everybody's required to do, whether they want to or not. I don't think we are obligated to have ethno-states, that every people in the world needs to sever ties with other peoples in their current homeland, right, and have their own ethno-state if they don't want to. So, for instance, there are multi-ethnic countries like Switzerland that don't seem to be particularly unhappy with that situation. They figured out a way of living together. They don't feel threatened by the other ethnic groups within their federation. And so there's no pressure for that. But when you look at societies like the former Yugoslavia, which was held together basically by force with a centralized state, Yugoslavia was created at the end of the First World War from chunks of the Austro-Hungarian Empire and other empires, basically. And it was the Kingdom of the Southern Slavs. It was run by Serbia. The Serbian royal family ruled it. And it was a little empire in the Balkans. And it didn't work without a great deal of centralization and force. And after Tito died, in 1980, it began to unravel. And the different national groups began basically agitating for more autonomy. And by the 90s, it was over. And the only thing that was holding it together was force. And there were a number of wars in the Balkans because at that time, the United States was run by the elder George Bush. And their attitude towards the breakdown of communism was frankly shameful in my view, because they were talking about we need to ensure stability. These people are spokesmen for big business and things like that, people who want to have stability in the world, even if it's stability and evil. They want stability for their plans to go forward. And so they said, we stand for stability in the Balkans. We don't want to basically stand for the self-determination of these peoples. And so what happened? They had to fight. They had to fight wars in order to become separate. And a lot of people suffered. A lot of people died. And there are still borders there that probably are not stable and will probably cause more warfare. There's a country called Bosnia, which was supposed to be a Muslim state with, I think, barely 50% Muslim population. The rest were Christians of the Serbian or the Croatian persuasion. It just wasn't going to ever work. And a lot of it still probably won't work. And someday it's going to descend into violence again. Whereas if you look at what happened in in Czechoslovakia, which was an artificial state put together after the First World War, again, from bits and pieces of the Austro-Hungarian Empire, it basically had what they call the Velvet Divorce. They broke up amicably. And I think that white nations and the world as a whole, should come together in favor of self-determination of peoples on ethnic grounds if they can't get along in a larger state. And the purpose of this is twofold. One, it's to promote diversity in the real sense, allow there to be many different ways of life, many different peoples pursuing their own destinies without having to fight every step of the way for air and space and freedom. And the other thing is that it's a way of avoiding conflicts, avoiding unnecessary conflicts. So the ideal world order, in my view, is a world where whenever there are distinct peoples that aspire for autonomy, aspire to have their own homelands, that the world community should basically come together and say, I think that these people need to exercise their right to self-determination, and we would like to make it as amicable as possible and as bloodless and easy as possible for it to happen. And so you have more things like the breakup of the Czechs and the Slovaks, and far fewer things like the collapse into bloody chaos of Yugoslavia and all these wars that have happened, for instance, in the former Soviet space, things like that. So that's basically my take on ethno-nationalism. And yeah, I've been advocating this for a very long time. I've been advocating the idea that there is a great replacement going on for a very long time. I've been advocating secession as an idea for, again, avoiding conflict and allowing different peoples to pursue their own destinies. And it has been very, very interesting and encouraging over the last nearly 15 years that I've been running Countercurrents to see that these ideas have been making their way not just from the margins, but from the margins of a marginal movement like white nationalism all the way to the mainstream. We had Tucker Carlson, I think it was in 2021 now or 2020, talking about the Great Replacement. We have had the meme of national divorce become a mainstream Republican talking point. And now, yes, we have people like Tucker Carlson talking about ethno-nationalism. And I think this is a tremendous amount of progress, and I'm very, very optimistic because I do think these ideas, if the international community, if thought leaders, if political leaders would get behind them, these ideas would pave the way to a better world.
Let me ask you about real geopolitics, okay?
Sure.
And what we face in the West, okay? As far as, I think you know my view, maybe you don't, but as far as I'm concerned, we're occupied. We're occupied. We're philosophically occupied, culturally occupied as far as, the override. We don't have our own culture, in other words, where we can just express it. And this ties largely back to our links with really our long-standing history together with the Jewish people. Now, they put forward their terms of definitions for anti-Semitism. Mm-hmm. And they say, we Jews have a right to self-determination. If you don't agree with that, you're quote-unquote an anti-Semite.
Right.
And then they want to impose these laws and these rules, or let's just say definitions on us. And I'm like, look, if I agree to this, then you have to agree that we have our right to self-determination. That includes not having you.
Absolutely. Absolutely. I completely agree with this. I'm an ethno-nationalist for all peoples. I think that if there's a lesson of the Holocaust, the lesson of the Holocaust is that stateless peoples are highly susceptible to genocide. We saw that with the Armenians. We saw that with the Jews. We've seen that with other stateless peoples. And the lesson of the Holocaust, therefore, is for stateless peoples, especially accident-prone stateless peoples, to have their own states that will make them more secure. And so Israel is the answer to the Holocaust for the Jews. Having an independent Armenia is the thing that Armenians needed to make their people safe. And I believe that the same applies to white people. And I believe that although white people are nominally supreme, right, and we have white supremacist societies and all this nonsense that's being said about us by the left, that actually we're stateless in our own societies. Most of our societies are anti-white in their policies. And
you must, by the way, be very encouraged that this is obviously not obviously for people that don't know, right? But this is one of the main editorial frames that we've had since, the 2010s, when media picked up. I'm talking about streaming audio media. This has been one of our core things that we've talked about. Is very anti-white. It's an anti-white system. Mm-hmm. And it must be encouraging that now you have Tucker Carlson again. To me, he's like the king of media right now. I mean, he's nobody bigger than this guy apart from Trump, saying the same thing. Everything's anti-white. It must be very encouraging again that
very
all
encouraging.
Of our points are now raging it.
Yeah, and somebody like Joe Rogan is platforming these ideas as well. Again, it's tremendously encouraging. But my view is that Jews want to have it both ways. They want to be able to have self-determination in their own homeland, and they want to say, but you need to be multicultural. You need to be maximally open, whitey, and you're evil if you're not that way. And I just say to hell with that. That's a heinous, absurd moral double standard. We understand why Jews prefer that, because they want to have it both ways. They want to have a diaspora and they want to have an ethno-state. I think that whites simply need to say no to that. We need to regain control of our societies. We need to can the multiculturalism. We need to close our borders, and we need to commence remigration of incompatible groups. And that's the only way that whites as a race are going to survive in all of our historic homelands. And my feeling about Israel is it's a pity that they have so thoroughly disgraced Zionism as an idea. Because if you look in the 19th century, if you look at Herzl, the founder of Zionism, there are things that I could just sign my name to that he wrote. He was an ethno-nationalist. He understood that the reason why there was a Jewish question was that Jews were a diaspora people who had an especially aggressive attitude towards their host populations, and that anti-Semitism was caused by this, that the economic niches and political niches that Jews like to occupy were deeply annoying to their host populations, and that the way forward was for Jews to become a normal people in their own homeland. I completely agree with that. And the sad thing is that Israel has brought ethno-nationalism a very bad name now. Of course, when I advocate for ethno-nationalism, people say, "Oh, what about the Nazis?" And of course, the Nazis are supposed to have given ethno-nationalism a really bad name. But in the current world today, the ethno-nationalist project that is most disgraceful for nationalism, the thing that has put the biggest cloud over the head of nationalists, is the behavior of Israel. And it's dismaying. I would like nationalism to work. And there's a lot of bad PR for nationalism being generated right now by Israel, unfortunately.
You saw the quote from Trump, or heard the quote. I played it earlier today. He says, "I'm a nationalist. I'm proud to be a nationalist." And I'm like, yeah, except for when it comes to Israel, you're not really a nationalist, dude. You're selling us out to the Israelis.
Absolutely.
But that's
and we have to get to a point where that's just not possible. And it's interesting that the American public is more and more skeptical of Jews and Jewish power. The Jews don't have this halo of sanctity about them that they used to have. That halo of sanctity is something that is confined to baby boomers and older, and younger generations just don't feel it. But what we have increasingly, therefore, is the impression that our political leaders are being held hostage or have joined a cult or something. They're all on the same talking points. We stand with Israel. We stand with Israel. It's so obvious, the pandering, the hysteria, the desire to decorate every stage that they're on with Jews. It really shows that our
embarrassing is what it is.
It's embarrassing, and more people see that and they cringe at it. When Trump was signing his proclamation to end the Department of Education, there were all these kids in the room with him off to the sides at desks writing. But what child was most prominently featured in the clip that I saw? Was a little Jewish child with a yarmulke on its head. I mean, it's just everywhere. They're treated like totems. When Trump was talking about the horrors of what's happening to whites in South Africa, the people who were writing the press releases and stuff like that, our State Department, they had to relate all of this not to the evils being done to white people, because that wouldn't go over very well. In and of itself, that doesn't go over very well. So they had to say, the real sign that South Africa is evil is that they are opposed to Israel. It's just laughable. Basically, the only thing sacred in Washington, D.C. is not America. It's Israel. And it's so glaringly obvious. It's so cringe-inducing. It's so alienating. And it's going to have to change because it's so increasingly out of touch with what Americans believe and want. That's my hope. It will change.
You go into obviously the media shift, okay? I know you keep your pulse on your channels because it's your business, and I keep my pulse on mine. And I have just been amazed at the change. Like you mentioned Rogan, which I didn't think, but yeah, Rogan's changed for sure. And then of course I'm mentioning Tucker, but you have the others, the McGregors, the kind of the influencers, the Ritters, who used to be so pro-Israel I couldn't listen to the guy. What's your opinion on these shifts? And then compare that to like putting a Dan Bongino, as deputy director of the FBI. It's like this guy doesn't even represent the intellectual elite anymore. Bongino's like so much pro-Israel, it's like ridiculous. Like you say, you're using the term cringeworthy. It is cringy. So where are you at on these observations?
I'm on the same page. I see that there's an increasing gulf, and my hope is that people like Bongino are insincere. That's the only thing you can hope. You can only hope that Trump is insincere, that Bongino is insincere, that Hegseth is insincere. That's the only thing that we can really do, is we just hope that these people are insincere. Because one of the things that happens whenever you set up a sacred cow, an idol, right? A set of values, set of commandments, whatever. You have people who fervently believe these things, and you have people who just pay lip service to them in order to get things that they want, to pursue their own ends. And this is bad, of course, because even if you disbelieve in, if you don't believe in this, even if you're just paying lip service to it, the fact that you're paying lip service to it means that its power, its status is unchallenged, right? And so the only thing that we can do with our current system is just hope that increasingly all these people who are piously Israel-centric and Jew-centric are basically just doing this for their own personal interests, and they're calculating that these people are an extremely powerful and dangerous mafia that you have to pussyfoot around and placate. And what that means, though, is that at the first sign that they're losing power, a lot of these people will just drop them. Because why bother? Because they're not true believers. They're just going along with an order that they might find to be intolerable and humiliating. But a lot of Americans are willing to humiliate themselves grotesquely by professing things that they don't really believe in order to get ahead. I mean, that's very much the American way. And so that's my hope. My hope is that Jewish influence is a mile wide, it's an ocean wide, and it's a molecule deep. And that very few people actually love Jews as much as they are professing to love them. And that as soon as there's a glitch in the matrix, as soon as they suffer some kind of major defeat, or as soon as they do something so heinous that even the most cynical and mind-numbed cultists can't go along with it, that this will evaporate. That's my hope. Another thing that I take hope from is the following. Jews are working overtime. They have lavishly funded institutions like the ADL and AIPAC, SPLC, and so forth, to basically clamp down on and suppress the ethnocentrism, the nationalistic sentiments of any non-Jewish people. They have these lavishly funded institutions, and these institutions are working overtime. They're working very hard. They're constantly working to keep our ethnocentrism suppressed. And
hold it there. Hold your thought. Yeah. Hold the thought there, Greg, because we're going into the break. You can hear the music, perhaps. It's Fetcho, everybody. Greg Johnson, editor-in-chief, Countercurrents Publishing and Countercurrents Magazine, Easing. Back with more after this. And welcome back. It's Fetch Inside the Eye Live, again coming to you from Riyadh, where it's just fantastic weather today, guys. Overcast, a little bit of rain. Enjoying the weather immensely, quite frankly. Got a nice soft breeze coming through the window here, making the studio very, very refreshing, which is a far cry from summer. All right, Greg, I got another AI bio for you. So ready?
Sure.
All right, here's our guest, everybody. Greg Johnson is a writer, publisher, and influential voice in the dissident right. As the editor-in-chief of Countercurrents Publishing, he has been at the forefront of promoting metapolitical and nationalist discourse. His work focuses on identity, culture, and the philosophical foundations of ethno-nationalism, drawing from thinkers like Nietzsche, Heidegger, and the European New Right. Through Countercurrents, he has provided a platform for intellectual debate, publishing translations and original works that challenge mainstream narratives on multiculturalism and liberalism. Known for his academic yet accessible style, Johnson is a key figure in shaping contemporary nationalist thought. And now joining us, Mr. Greg Johnson. How's that sound, Greg?
I'm very flattered. These AIs, they like me. I remember years ago when they had Tay, the AI, and they let Tay basically interact with the internet, and suddenly she became racist, which I think is very, very funny. And one of the things that all these AI developers are trying to do is figure out how to prevent AIs from drawing politically incorrect conclusions about things by just looking at reality. And of course, what that means is that to make AIs liberal, they have to mentally retard them. They have to dampen their intelligence a little bit. So anyway, but I was saying earlier, oh gosh, where were we before the break?
We were talking about AIPAC. Basically, what Jewish people have to do nowadays is work overtime.
They're working overtime.
This awakening, this noticing.
Yeah, exactly. And we are maybe at 5%. We're maybe at 5% of our potential for ethnocentrism and awareness of these issues. And they're working at 99% of their capacity to keep us at 5% or less. It basically means this: a small jump in our awareness might be more than they can handle in terms of their capacity to suppress ideas. And so I think that they're working overtime, but if there is an event, and there are lots of unpredictable events, unprogrammed events that happen in history, if there's such an event that causes our ability to basically see reality as it is, to surge up past their ability to contain it, then suddenly containment breaks down. And I guess we can use nuclear analogies, right? When the containment rods freeze up at the nuclear power plant or something, and things get out of control. So I think that is a real potential, that there are events that might be on their way that will overwhelm the mechanisms that are in place to control our awareness, and then things are going to really break down. And we're already seeing such a growth in awareness of what's called the Jewish question. I was so amazed and so pleased, for instance, when Ian Carroll went on the Joe Rogan show, and in the last 20 minutes he talked a lot about the Jewish question. He talked about the connection between Epstein and Mossad and, the larger Jewish control matrix that we have. I thought that was tremendously encouraging. So I think that this is a very, very perilous time for the establishment. It's a very, very promising time for dissidents.
I want to raise an issue now that deals with the state of Israel. And if you listen to a lot of the people, especially the supportive of, let's say, I don't want to say support Hamas, that type of thing, but let's just say they sympathize with the Palestinian position, and they are against what they call the neo-colonial state of Israel, which they now call more colonial than anything else. And there's probably some truth to that. But at the same time, you're talking about a group of people, usually Palestinian or Lebanese or Pakistan, but normally more from the Levant than I see from the Pakistan side. They seem to find it's not okay for the neo-colonial state of Israel, yet they find it perfectly acceptable, and we should be accepting what is essentially a neo-colonial effort in our own countries, like what's going on in the UK. With the massive influx. And I'm like, listen, if you're against the Israeli operation, how can you sit there and tell us we're supposed to be accepting of your position flooding our countries in the same way. And you're creating laws that prevent us from even speaking in our own country. You have double-tier policing. You allow your people who are immigrants to rape hundreds of thousands of our women and girls. And yet somehow we're supposed to not see the parallels here between Israel, which you call a neocolonial state, and your actions, which is a neocolonial effort to take over our countries equally. Where would you stand on a point like that?
I think you're absolutely correct. You're pointing out a heinous, indefensible moral double standard. There's an element of imperialism here. And of course, what happens all the time is people will uphold certain principles, but they only uphold them when it's to their advantage. And when it's not to their advantage, they just drop them. So it's perfectly common for people to say, well, what's happening in Israel is imperialism and colonialism, but what's happening in the UK vis-a-vis all these people coming in from the Levant, the Maghreb, from the Muslim world, that's not colonialism. That's just fine. Or that's diversity, or that's their punishment for all their crimes. But they won't apply the same standard. That's very typical of a lot of people, though. They don't apply the same standards. But my view is, I do not want to. How to put this? This is a difficult topic. I wish Israel could work, right? Because I would like there to be a Jewish ethno-state. And I'd like the diaspora Jews who have so much power in America to be in Israel and to have less influence on my government. And that means that they got to make their little colony work. Yeah.
But let's stop right there, though. Because let's say the colony was working, going out, let's say, 10 years ago. Now it's basically almost in civil war with what's happened yesterday with Netanyahu saying, I'm not going to listen to the court. Now they're literally talking about a civil war now in Israel. And bless them if they do at this stage, is what I can care. But they have always had a strategy, Greg, of keeping 5 to 7 to 10, 12% of their diaspora in these host countries for the specific purpose to undermine our countries, to ensure that they essentially loot our countries to support their ethno project. Yeah. And in this, it's like enough is enough. You know what I mean? Yeah. They can't make it work without literally thieving from the host countries where they keep the diaspora. So it's like a very difficult challenge, because Israel, as a state, as a people, they're not going to be able to do anything. There's nothing in Israel to build, if you know what I mean.
Well, it is possible for people highly talented people to basically create prosperous societies in the middle of nowhere. You look at a place like Iceland, for instance, there's not a lot there. Or not a lot of natural resources in Hong Kong and so forth. And you'd think that Jews, being inordinately clever and industrious commercial people, they could manage something like that. They could manage to live prosperously in Israel, and they could all be there. Unfortunately, they have created such a mess of things with their neighbors that I fear that the project is just going to collapse, and it could bring the rest of the world down with it. I mean, that's sort of their threat, right, that they make, that if we go down, we're going to take you down with us. It's really an intolerable situation. My feeling is that Israel might become a failed state. And it's already on its way to becoming a failed state. That what's going to happen is this, the diaspora might be enormously strengthened by Israelis fleeing Israel. And that's just going to be worse for basically the United States and other host countries that Jews will flee to. And I don't want that to happen. I'd like there to be a solution to this. The trouble may be is that Jews just don't have a genius for self-government. They don't have the ability to govern themselves, especially in relation to the property of their neighbors. They can't constrain themselves, and that just might doom their project. I hope not, but I fear that that's the direction it's going to.
But then you take this idea, obviously Israel's front and center right now. Mm-hmm. Trump is basically on the verge of taking America to a war with Iran. He's asking the Congress, to authorize his ability to attack Iran, which at least he's going to Congress. Give him that, I guess. But,
yeah.
But you take all of these concepts and then you let go, especially the UK. We have a very good listenership in the UK. Many of the people we've had on this show, I'm talking about a handful, have now served prison terms for things they've said. They've been political prisoners, And how can we resolve then an ethno-state when we are literally under occupation, where even to speak uncomfortable truths can land you in a prison cell as a political prisoner? I mean, we're not neo-Bolshevik level. They're executing you. Mm-hmm. But we are in a neo-Bolshevik type of environment. How do we take the ethno-state concept and use it to try to push back against this neo-Bolshevik occupation that we see in so many Western countries?
Well, that's the great problem, because what we have, the cards that we've been dealt, are very limited. And in places like the UK, our freedom of speech is being constricted. We've had a bit of a reprieve in the United States, especially with X being taken over by Elon Musk. However, there are problems even there. The situation that we're in is that we don't have very much money. We don't have political leaders who are doing our bidding. We don't have our own platforms, and so forth. Much less the power of arms on our side. We just don't have these things. The establishment has all those cards. They've got the money. They got the politicians. They can command the armies and the mall cops and the police forces and so forth. We just don't have those cards. Fortunately for us, we do have our little platforms here and there. Fortunately, the internet exists, and the internet is as big a revolution, I think, as the printing press. I think it will have as momentous an influence on history as the printing press did. It's already showing that that's going to be the case. We have the internet, and we have the truth on our side, and we have increasing numbers of people who are willing to stand up and speak the truth, even if they're oppressed, even if they're persecuted. And I think that we're going to win, even though we don't have many cards in terms of financial and political power. They lack the truth. Their views are premised on falsehoods, and they're flagrantly evil. And the people who are in charge of this whole project are cartoonishly evil and increasingly stupid and decadent.
That's a very good point. I've always said, guys, been saying this for 20 years. You don't understand. These people are incredibly evil, and evil cannot, although evil does have genius, they cannot attract a full army of intelligence. Yeah. You just have to attract stupid people who wants to be evil. You know what I mean? Yeah. If you're intelligent, why would you want to be evil?
Yeah.
So they have
evil
to
people are. People. I mean, part of evil is just egomania and narcissism. And one of the characteristics of these types of people is they cannot suffer the presence of anybody who's superior to them. I don't want to be the smartest person in the room. That's the last thing I want. I want to find people who are better at things than me, whereas evil people don't. And what that means is that evil people tend to stifle the development of talent around them. And so the longer they hold on, the more stifled and twisted and disgusting the hangers-on and followers they have. And these people aren't capable of running even an evil enterprise. And so there's just a tendency, I think, for these evil institutions to breed increasingly inferior leaders. And I think that that's an advantage. We have to have a different dynamic at work. We have to find a way of making increasingly intelligent and virtuous people want to come to our side and welcome them. But I think that we have a lot of advantages just in that we've got the truth and we have honorable people and brave people coming to us. And there is enough power of public opinion. There is enough freedom that if we can persuade more and more people to come to our side and fewer people to stand with the establishment, especially influential and intelligent people, that we're going to grow stronger and they're going to grow weaker, and there will come a time when their system crumbles, like the system that they had, another form of the same system, on the other side of the Iron Curtain. A lot of people were betting that communism would be around a very long time, and they were totally taken by surprise when it crumbled away very quickly. It crumbled away very quickly because it had hollowed out over time. Fewer and fewer people believed in it. More and more people were cynical about it. They were going through the motions. They were paying lip service. And when they realized that they weren't alone, in fact, that they were the majority, the system unraveled quickly. And I think that could be the fate of the system that we have today. They are declining, I believe. I think there are clear marks of decline and rottenness. And I think there are very, very positive trends in our camp. It's very funny. People in my circles, a lot of them reminisce about the glorious days of the alt-right in 2015 and 2016 and 2017 before things started, getting bad and deplatforming and censorship and stuff like that. And I kind of laugh at that because my traffic at Countercurrents has quadrupled since then. There are far more people listening to my content, my ideas, than there were back in the glory days of the alt-right. Now, that's interesting. That's a very encouraging sign, I believe.
I want to raise two issues. We only have about 5 minutes to go. So I want to, first of all, let's get anything you want to get in now. So we got about 5 minutes. Anything you want to promote? Obviously, your website, countercurrents.com, counter-currents, I believe.
Yeah.
.com. But give out all your information so people who want to reach out to you are going to be able to do so, please.
My main platform is countercurrents.com, counter with a hyphen currents.com. I have a Telegram presence, but it's somewhat limited. I have been chased off X over and over again, even under the
and you both.
The current regime.
You both, man.
Yeah. So you can't follow me there. Follow me at Countercurrents. Make it your homepage. Put it in your RSS feed, whatever. There's so much good material. We generally publish 20 things a week. I do a weekly podcast, a live stream on Saturdays, and so on and so forth. So go to Countercurrents, and everything else that I do is immediately accessible from there. And there are many, many other writers at Countercurrents that you might want to get acquainted with. And we keep getting new writers as well.
It's a great website, everybody. So counter-currents.com. Check it out. Greg Johnson, editor-in-chief at counter-currents. Now, Greg, two issues now. One is overreach, imperial overreach. And you look at what's going on now. Today, I think there was a 35 or $53 million were blocked from being spent or sent to the World Economic Forum by the United States government. They were slated to pay them like 35 or 53. Don't remember, but it's a huge number to the World Economic Forum. But I see two. One of them was 9/11. That was a type of overreach to launch this continuous war. But for me, the second overreach was really their COVID gambit.
Absolutely.
And that has been a huge win for people waking up at what's going on. Where do you see these two events, and can you trace, or would you add any others that I'm not putting in?
I can't think of any others off the top of my head, but yeah, COVID was an extraordinary disaster for the system because there was a kind of hubris about their COVID policies that were truly remarkable. And I was sitting there watching this, and I was going back to my libertarian days. I was finding myself thinking, they just can't blow a whistle and make an advanced industrial society stop and then blow a whistle and it'll all start up again. It doesn't work that way. They're going to find that a lot of things will not come back online and that they are going to have consequences for decades and generations that they're going to be working out because of this ridiculous hubris. We'll just shut the world down for a while over a disease. And that was borne out. We're going to be paying for that error for a very, very long time. It has done a number of things. It's impoverished the system. It's caused a great deal of economic chaos and inflation. And it has also delegitimized the system tremendously. It's made it a lot more fragile. And that means that it's a lot more mortal, put it that way. It's a lot more vulnerable. It can come crashing down more easily. And I was really wondering in 2020 if America especially wasn't approaching a convergence of catastrophes, which is a term that Guillaume Faye coined, where a system, even a really degenerate one, might be able to ride out one catastrophe, maybe two at a time. But what if there are three or four that converge? And America was having COVID, it was having the BLM insurrection, and then it had a stolen election. And I was really wondering, is this going to be enough? It wasn't enough, it turned out. America held on for 4 years under Biden, what a total farce. And now Trump is back. But again, a system can only take so many blows at the same time from different directions before it'll crumble. Even a healthy man can only take so much. And I don't think that the West is very healthy today. And so, yeah, I have great hopes that their power is waning and limited, and that a lot of really exciting change might happen more quickly than we can possibly imagine. Just like communism collapsed more quickly than most people imagined.
Yeah, exactly. And with that, what a great way to end the show, Greg. Thanks for coming on. Couldn't have timed it better, guys.
Well, thank you so much. It's a real pleasure. It's a real pleasure to do this. And let's do this again soon. Let's not wait a few years. Let's do this soon.
Yeah, I agree with you. That was a great conversation. Thanks so much for listening, everybody.